try to go live. Right on. All right. Good evening, everyone. As our guests and our coaches are coming online, we'd like to welcome everybody to the Coach's Corner. All right. Got a couple others coming in, settling in. So we're doing a video review again with Sir Helga, Duchess of the West, Order of the Pelican. One of our good analysts of the monthly segment that we've been doing on this. As always, we're joined by His Grace Thorfinn of the West as well. We have a couple of unbelted fighters that were kind enough to send us in their video to be picked apart and scrutinized. So hopefully we can put them on a good path to becoming better fighters and finding out what's wrong with their fight, and giving them a good path forward. So, tonight we are joined by a special guest helping us do some analysis. His Excellency Ragnar Beowulf from the Kingdom of the West, good friend of ours who we also happen to know is is really excellent at being able to pick these things apart. So I'm going to start with you, Ragnar. We've gone over, me and Thorfinn and Helga have been doing this for a while. People kind of know our background on this, but why don't you go ahead and share a little bit of your background, especially including your experience with video analysis.
Well, I'm Ragnar Beowulf. As you said, I'm in the West. I've been fighting since 1983. Was knighted in 91, and I've had a few long breaks in between, but been fighting pretty solid since then. So it's been a little while. I don't really have a whole lot of experience doing this online. This is my first time actually doing it, but throughout as soon as video cameras came out, I was a big proponent on people filming themselves and picking it apart. There's really not a lot that is better for your training sometimes than watching yourself from the outside. Being told what you're doing is one thing, being able to actually see it, totally different.
Right on. Well, we're happy to have you. I know I've worked with you some, and Helga has as well, and so we wanted to have you on and let you take a shot at picking these things apart.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy this kind of stuff. So yeah, looking forward.
So Helga, you want to give us some caveats and disclaimers before I introduce our guests?
Can do. So caveats and disclaimers is welcome to the show. For those just tuning in, we go over something really repeatedly on the show, which is ruthless self-assessment. This show is actually based in looking for deficiencies within the fighters. You will hear us compliment the fighters about a couple things, but we are very much so after the deficiencies within the video, so we can then hand them the next thing to work on. And so there does come a point where everybody learns the difference between ruthless self-assessment and just being mean. And that is never the point of this show, is to be mean about somebody's fight. We are looking for deficiencies, and you'll hear us say we're being ruthless, we're assessing, you're going to hear these things. And behind the scenes, we actually talked to everybody about what this means for them and how this plays out. And so bear with us as we do this. We have a lot of fun doing it, and all of us have learned this language. And I want to say thank you very much to the two unbelts today that gave us video so we could continue doing this. And I really hope that by the end of this, you walk away with some good points and keys to work on, so you can continue your fighting career and path, improve, and then send us the next round of video.
Yes, and so this is the last of the initial block of video review that we were doing back in November. I think we did the first episode on this where we did some instruction on how to do video analysis, and then after that we put out a call for some folks, and these guys were all kind enough to submit their video. We are going to be doing another round of this. Shortly, I'll be putting out a call on the SCA Coaches Corner for more video review. So be looking for that. We're probably going to stick with a monthly segment on this. And we generally have enough time to do just 2 fighters. And, we've given it a lot of thought over the last few months as we've done this. We are going to be sticking with unbelted fighters. I know we've covered this previously, but one of the biggest reasons that we do that is because the problems that you're going to see at the mid-range unbelted fighter are going to be applicable to a wider range of our audience, and people are more likely to see something that they're doing in their fight and see the solutions that we have for those things. Whereas, if we're doing video review for Thorfinn, it's going to be a lot of, oh, excellent, nice fighting, Your Grace, and that doesn't really help. A lot of what we need to fix is much more nuanced. So we kind of wanted to look at some videos that is going to be applicable to a wider audience. So as Helga said, our great thanks to our guests for submitting their video and coming on and letting us kind of pick things apart. Jay, would you mind? Oh, wait. Oh, Helga's got a question.
I don't have a question. I totally forgot part of my spiel, like an asshole. Yeah. So part of his spiel is the unbelts that are on tonight, both Thorin and Elias, please feel free to say, hey, I don't understand the feedback that I'm currently getting, or I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Can you help me see this? Can we talk about this moment in time? I would rather spend most of this show on, like 30 seconds of video to help you develop the eye for what we're seeing so you can continue to use it down the road, than blast through all of your videos and have it not make sense. So if there's any point in time, feel free to interrupt us. You're not just here to listen to us talk. You're here to take part in this analysis and walk away with better tools. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions.
And we'll be checking the comments as well, so you can even throw some questions in there, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So without further ado, His Lordship Elias the J from Kingdom of Callantyre, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Jay. I've been fighting heavy for this. Last year would have been my 4th season, so this will be hopefully my 5th season late in the year. We'll see how it goes. But I started in foam fighting and came over, and haven't looked back since. I kind of bounced back and forth between 2-sword and sword and shield, but have been focusing on sword and shield primarily the last prior year or so.
So your foam fighting experience, was that with Amp-Guard, or was that one of the other groups?
Both Dagger Hero and Amp-Guard.
Okay, right on. Yeah, that seems to be a good foundation for what we do. There's been a number of guys that have had some pretty great success doing that. So,
absolutely.
Right on. Welcome. And I assume you're a Huskarl?
I am Huskarl of Callantyre.
Right on. Excellent. All right. And we also have His Lordship Thorin from the Kingdom of East, way up in Canadian land. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Thorin. As you said, I'm from East Kingdom up in Nova Scotia, Barony Rune Talon. I've been fighting fighting heavy since 2012. Couple breaks in there between injury and having a kid. Been mainly focused on great weapons, both polearm and greatsword, and sword and axe for the last few years, and slowly getting back into fighting buckler and smaller shields. That's me.
Right on. Well, welcome to both of you. So yeah, at this point, I think we'll have Helga bring up the video. I think we're going to do Thorin's video first. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through some of this and look through a couple of fights, and ideally we're going to be looking for a point of failure. That would be a point at which Thorin gets struck, because we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. And when that happens, that is a point that we can identify as a shortcoming, and we can figure out how it got there and how to fix it. It's still a little bit choppy there, Helga. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You
It's
might need
really-
to reduce the size of your screen, take it to full screen.
Yeah. It's otherwise we're not gonna be able to tell what's going on. It looked like he jumped like 5 feet right there.
I was about to say, like, hang on, let's see if we can get that to run clean.
So he's learned how to transport. So
Which
I
is
mean,
huge.
that-
Once you
that's
get
a good
there,
place
that's
to
the first
start.
step really to a lot of other techniques.
Okay, that coming across clear now?
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay.
Okay, body shot.
Nope.
Oh,
Let me slow that down just a little bit more. Trying to remember the back buttons on this thing.
Do I need to give you the shortcut keys again?
I'm reading my little cheat sheet.
You can also do question mark on the YouTubes, and it'll show you.
Well, that just seems simple. So,
All right, Thorfinn, you want to take a shot at this?
absolutely. So I think really what happens here is that when you go for this thrust, it's a really kind of a low percentage shot because you're at such a high range, and you're pretty nailed to the ground here with your feet, right? So you can't really jump backwards fast enough to recover after that first thrust. So you're holding it at the very end of the sword, and for you to get it all the way back and then into a defensive position while he's in a solid kind of neutral stance, so he can either defend or attack from there. What it does is it creates you have to race him to get to that defense, and he's going to beat you because he's in a more defensible stance. You got out of position, which created that situation for you, in my opinion. And again, your footwork was like having that front foot so heavy on the front of the foot, you were pretty nailed to the ground like that. There you go, and bang. So,
yep.
But okay, that's my general take on it from just watching it for 6 seconds.
All right, Ragnar.
Yeah, I have a question for Thorin. Is there? I watched some of your other videos, and you seem like you really do favor the right hand stance, right hand grip. Is there a particular reason for that?
He's left-handed.
I know you being left-handed. I was kind of curious about that.
Left-handed, and a lot of my experience before SCA was katana. So I've got that neural pathway set in my brain that the right hand is high, left hand is low, especially with greatsword. So I forget to switch hands a lot of time with greatsword.
Right. See, that's one thing that I see. If you could remember to kind of switch that up a little bit, lead the other way, it gives you some really funky angles and something along the lines of that thrust that we just saw would have given you a slightly different angle that your opponent's probably not used to, and you'd probably be able to extend with it a little bit better. And so it like I said, a lot of stuff I saw was you leading with the right, or fighting right hand stance. Give the other side a try every once in a while, see how that feels.
So, Ragnar, with that, is that a difference of a right leg lead versus left leg lead and a right hand, left hand lead? I mean,
it's both, or either or both. With the right hand grip or the left hand grip, you're going to get different angles on your opponent. Let's see, how do I describe this here? The picture we have up there now, right, you can see the angle that his sword's in. When that comes into a more of an attack position, that comes over to his left side and opens up that what would be to him his right quarter, or the entire right half, which is kind of out of your reach at the moment. You seem like you're pretty decent with right-handed. Mix it up left-handed from time to time. Get your opponent used to one, and then switch over to the other when you pull back or even mid-swing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely does. I'll have to work that more into the Pell regiment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
try to become proficient with both sides, both hand stances. That way you're flexible in the moment.
Yeah, and I think being left-handed, you have an advantage over a lot of other people because, that's your natural side. Yeah.
all right, Helga, you want to let it play through the next one?
Yep. I'll just leave it slow for a moment.
Yep, that's fine. Nice. Nah, you're just wrestling.
Mhm.
So did you hit his arm as he hit your body?
I got his body as he was coming in to me.
Okay.
Back it up a little bit more. There you go.
Oh, yeah, that crept in past the back of the arm.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like it hit him right in the tricep, but
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
that's
Yeah,
where I was seeing the impact.
we could have just
Did-
bridged up both, I guess.
did he hit you on that one too?
We talked about it afterwards, and his sword hit mine on the way in, so it robbed it of the power.
Okay.
Oh, he hit you down in the leg anyway.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'm gonna back up to where he gets nailed in the leg.
Oh yeah.
Before the wrestling match.
Yeah, before the wrestling. It's wrestling with an A. By the way, that was a really great setup when you hit that leg shot, though.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that was a great leg.
So that's your positive feedback for tonight. All right, Helga.
All right. So consistent thing that I am seeing is that you are stuck on a 4-beat cadence. There is no halftime to your fight right now. And so one of the things that this is doing, and we're seeing in this fight, is you and your opponent are on the same like exchange rate. Nobody is changing timing here. This is a gunfight at a slow cadence.
My turn, your
Um,
turn. My turn, your turn.
Yep. And one of the things is that internally right now, you're telling your body, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. So like your feet get a turn, your hands get a turn, your hips get a turn. And so like your whole body is on this 4-beat cadence as you're moving around. And this is where he's actually taking advantage of the fight. And this is also when you start to become unbalanced, you are not being able to recover from it because you do not know how to take a halftime step yet. We haven't seen that at all so far. And I can tell you, I didn't see that at all in any of the videos you submitted, actually. And so one of the big factors for me right now is here's another little piece that I'm going to give you that is like the positive is you are starting to see your opponent. Remember we talked about this like a year and a half ago, is like you weren't looking at your opponent. You made that little drop sword block because your brain is starting to actually recognize threats. And so you are starting to recognize threats, but your body, you are not actually allowing your body to move because everything is on that 4-beat step of like everything has its turn before we go. And it gets worse as these fights go along.
All right,
Does that make
Ragnar.
sense?
Oh, yeah.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Be a little more patient. You seem to tend to want to be the one that is on the attack. I think if you kind of bide your time a little bit and kind of wait for your opponent, maybe shift over to the right a little bit and make your opponent shift. When your opponent shifts, that's when you can attack. As it is right now, most of your attacks are coming when he's at his strongest defense. Because what I'm seeing on the screen is that it looks like you feel like you have to get the attack in to get this thing rolling, and you don't need to do that. You can get him to open up just by shifting around yourself. And it looks like Helga wants to speak.
Oh no, I just want to dogpile on what you had to say there.
Dogpile away. That was
dogpiling away on that one is all your motion is forward.
Yeah.
And this is a different way of saying what Ragnar is saying is that every time you're making a motion, you are going into range. Even your lateral motion is forward, which is closing range, which is the reason why you got into that wrestling match. He is not doing that, and he's actually taking advantage of it.
All right. Ragnar, you got some more on that?
Nope.
Okay, Thorfinn?
Yeah. Okay, so it seems like when you get ready to start a big aggressive attack form, you do one large kind of step forward, right? And it's a pretty obvious tell for your opponent, but also it's like this is where your feet are going before the rest of your body, right? So you're going big step in, and then you're playing catch up. But once you get in, I don't know if it's because you don't feel safe in there or not, but you just go into a heavy attack mode, right? So, and what Ragnar was talking about was having peace of mind of knowing that you're safe in that zone to be able to pause or to stay on guard, right? And instead you go in and attack, and you just attack until someone's dead. it's just that you're going in and you're saying, I don't know who's dying, but someone's dying right now. and so, but you have to practice. And this is, again, I hammer on this all the time, is fundamentals, right? And so when you're doing your pel work, the sidestepping motions, staying on guard through all of those things, and just learning to trust your defense. That allows you to have that kind of bit of air that you need to be able to pick your shots, like Ragnar was saying. Okay, so learn that your body goes as one, right? You come in together, everything, your defense, everything is all present at that time. And then, once you have that safety, you can then choose your attacks, not just left, right, left, right, left, right. You know what I mean? And I think otherwise, you're aggressive, which is good, especially, but I think that you could give yourself a little bit of more luft, a little more air in your fight. Okay.
Riding right behind that, there's something I like to do with the folks I train, especially some of my squires, like my most recent one. They're really uncomfortable at that close range. So you have to force yourself to be there and stand in there. You're going to die a lot, but keep your awareness with you so that you can see what's going on. And eventually you'll start getting more comfortable in there. And then once you're comfortable in there, that's when things really start taking off for you. But put yourself, if you know you're in an uncomfortable spot, or a spot's uncomfortable for you, put yourself in that uncomfortable spot as much as you can, especially at a practice. It's a practice, obviously this looks like it was a championship of some sort or something, but it's the same idea. If you make yourself uncomfortable and then get used to it and figure out a way out of it.
Yeah, the best way that I tell people to do that is is fight in a box. Those parking strips you got over there, those parking slots, that's big enough for two fighters to be disengaged in a fight. But if you manage to fight within that parking spot, that teaches you how to control range, so that you're not always going backwards in a straight line, so that you get comfortable with the idea of establishing range, stepping up into where your opponent is, and as Ragnar was saying, just getting used to being at that range. So that's a way that you can train that. You can also do it with a couple of 9-foot spears. Just give yourself basically a 10-foot box. That's one of the best ways that we can do that. So do we got enough here to kind of give him a top 3 to work with? Okay, before we do that, I also wanted to say in that last little bit there, when you were on your knees, your toes were flat out. Are your ankles incapable of allowing you to curl your toes underneath you?
Not incapable, but I've broken both my ankles, so it's kind of painful some days. So the flat is usually easier. Okay. Especially with the way I got trained, that when you saw when I got legged, I didn't kneel, I just dropped.
Right.
So I tend to make sure my feet are out of the way when I hit the ground, and then I just keep going. Okay.
If you can curl your toes underneath you, it gives you a better shooting platform. It gives you a more stable tripod to work with. You're less likely to get pushed over, and you have a better foundation for generating motion.
Yeah, you can engage your core.
Shots.
So it's easier to engage your core if you do it that way.
Yeah. So if that's something that you can do, I mean, if your ankles are a weakness, then that it may be one of those things you can't do. But I would suggest trying it out. It allows you to push off on your toes to be able to engage the core and to rotate your hips and generate motion in a way that you just can't right now. So that's one of the big things that I always see when somebody's sitting on their knees, is when you have your feet flat out like that, you're going to get pushed over. So otherwise, Helga, do we got enough information to give them top 3 to work with?
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to say is we want to start working on your cadence and understanding half timing and half step motions in there. It's going to be a lot of play. It's going to be a lot of failure but it's going to be the next key to your fighting actually going along, because you're going to become more adaptable and less committed to each motion. So each motion will become something that you can develop out of the 90-degree rule, all of those things where your body is still loaded and you're in motion, and then now you can change your decision. Right now you can't do that. And so that's where I want to see the next thing happen, is slightly smaller steps, less committed steps, and changing up your cadence. Like, what if I throw it at halftime? What if I and put music in your ear while you're working on the pedal, because you can screw with your own cadence. Like, pick a heavy bass, cadence, and it has off timing in it. Like, amusingly enough, 9 Inch Nails works really well. And then start working on the pedal at different timing. Change the song, choose the timing, and start getting your body to break out of all the motions. So that's 1. 2, Sean pointed out something that I actually missed. So this flat-footed thing is actually a sign that you are fighting from the belly button up, by the way. and I should have caught this sooner in there. So like Sean, good job on that one, because I totally
hey,
missed
thanks.
to mention that now, and I was like, oh. So right now you are fighting strong. So you are fighting up here. You are using all of your pecs and your body, your upper body, to generate power right now. And where your feet are in the right place, we are seeing a little bit of hip lockout. And how this shows is when you're legged, you have no problem with what you're doing, which means you're not connected from anything down under the belly button. And so this is something that we want to actually watch for. And I think we should probably do some more video later on it to see if this is just happening when you're fighting with Bastard Sword, or if this is actually a consistent problem within your fighting, like current training. The third one is lateral motion, where you don't cross your feet. You are actually turning away from your opponent and crossing yourself well right at the edge of measure. And if somebody actually pushes you, you're going to have to scramble to recover. And so this is a simple thing of learning to face your opponent in lateral motion, so you are not crossing your feet and giving yourself no platform to fire from. Never create a platform that you can't move out of.
There you
There's
go.
my 3.
All right, Ragnar, we're at 3 things that he can work on. You're muted. Yep, you're muted. That's usually one of Thorfinn's tricks.
I brushed my keyboard. So we're talking about just this particular video, correct?
In general, whatever you're seeing.
Okay. Mix up your handedness, switch back and forth between right and left. Okay. Don't be quite so aggressive when you're fighting. Let your opponent dictate the fight sometimes. By doing that, you can react to them and take control over. It's a bit more of a complicated concept than just that, but basically what it boils down to is letting your opponent do what they're going to do, and take advantage of their mistake. Okay. So what it boils down to is just relax a little bit, be confident in your defense, let your opponent make a mistake and take advantage of it. Okay. And let's see. Other than what Helga said, I didn't have a clear third one. Other than how important the footwork is. You can use, from my perspective, when she talks about using the power from the upper body, you can add to that power with your movement. If you can change your movements from quite being so far out to the side and a little bit more oblique to your opponent, you can use that motion to add to your power when you're throwing your shots. Okay, kind of work on that, or think on that a little bit. Without a Pell here to show you what I'm talking about, it's a little difficult to verbalize it, but basically it boils down to using your movement to add to your power. Okay.
Right on.
There's 3.
All right, Thorfinn.
Okay, so I don't really have 3 because you guys covered most of the ones I want to talk about. I'm just going to try and say one of the things Ragnar was talking about, maybe in a different verbiage. Timing and tempo, right? So you want to say you want to control the fight, but you can allow them to set the tempo of this fight, right? And so that's all learning timing and how the fight's happening organically at that moment. The other thing is, I think that you could work on transitioning safely between each one of your ranges. Okay, so I watch you get out on a far end range, and then you want to explode into the fight, right? You can then move through you should learn to move through all the ranges while on guard and ready to attack. Okay, so, but that's Pell work and practice. Maybe go with a friend at practice and just practice coming in on them, right? Allow them to swing at you, and all you're going to do is come in safely into each one of the ranges and then back out again, right? And just get yourself used to the idea that you're going to be going through these different ranges instead of like, oh shit, there's an opening, explode on it, right? Other than that, you're looking good. Right on.
All right, I'll just cover a couple of things as well. Just kind of, again, different way of saying some of the same stuff. The stuff that Helga was talking about your tempo as far as taking turns, right? My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. You're kind of doing this thing where you're, you know, fire, recover, like reset, and then fire, and then reset. The way I talk about this is trying to find the natural return path of each shot you throw. The natural return path is determined by how the blow impacts or does not impact. And as you finish the one blow and you follow the natural return path, that is oftentimes going to lead you to the next most natural delivery path as well. If you can find that, it's something that that I train quite a bit on with sword and board techniques. But fighting is fighting is fighting, and you know, stick motion is stick motion. From what I'm seeing, you have a good sense of stick motion. You understand how the stick rotates to be able to get power. So it's being able to come from any blow to any other blow. Uther and Jade teach the 1 through 6 drill, which is going to be a little more difficult to do with the greatsword because of the way that it's really hard to get a lot of the crossover stuff. But if you can work out the Pel with that idea of being able to get from any one blow to any other blow, that way you're going to have less of a tendency to fire the one and then do the reset, and you know, it gets you out of that my turn.
Did Sean just freeze on everybody? There he is.
Is it me? It's me. The other thing that Ragnar was talking about as far as establishing range, step up in there, get into range, find a position where you can strike, and dare your opponent to beat you, dare them to throw back at you, and then take advantage of what they do. But you know, and again, that kind of goes back to what Helga was talking about crossing your feet as well. So finding a way to deliberately and purposely manipulate range, so you can put yourself in the position that you need to be in first, and then find the target. And that does take a little bit of faith to know that when I establish range, there is going to be a target there, even though I can't see that target before I take that step into range. Does that make sense? All right, I think Thorfinn had another follow-up there too.
Just real quick, something that a set of videos that you should check out, I don't know if you've already watching them, is Duke Mark de Arendel's 2 sword classes that he does every week. And what he does is he goes through historical manuscripts and then talks about practical application of how they're switching their hands. So this may be something that you could look to adapt into your fighting style. He's one of the best greatsword fighters I've ever seen. So,
yep, no doubt. So, Thorin, do you have any questions? Is there anything that we said that you don't understand that you would like to clarify?
Nope, makes sense. I've been actually writing as you guys have been speaking, so I can refer back to it. And honestly, my footwork has been one of my biggest weaknesses throughout my career, so the notes on that is going to help a lot and gives me something to focus on while we're still in lockdown.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody here would agree, because we've talked about this a lot, that footwork is everything. It is absolutely the foundation of everything we do. That is the basis by which you establish range, as Ragnar was saying. That's how you do that. And I'll hit you with my sword, but I'll kill you with my feet. And so focusing on your footwork and making those steps more deliberate, more purposeful, more intentional. Because I think the crossing your feet behind you, as Helga was talking about, is something you kind of do to because you're not really sure what to do. Does that make sense? If you can focus on your footwork, that'll always work. Ragnar, you had one more thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on what you were saying about footwork. To me, footwork, I think, is the hardest thing for any fighter to work with. It's easy to hit people with a stick and then teach your shoulders and your body hand-eye coordination and hitting something. But then mixing in your feet in there at the same time is not easy for the average person. So that's probably the most difficult thing just about every fighter has to deal with. You see most fights, you go to any crown, you see 80% of the fights, they end up face to face, just hitting each other. So footwork is probably one of the most, probably the most important aspect, but also the hardest to get down. So just be patient with it, and there's some stuff to watch. Mark also has some videos on footwork that are really fantastic, some basic footwork that are really, really good. So check those out too.
Right on. All right, well, Thorne, hopefully we got you some good information to work with. So now this is the part where we get to see whether or not Jay has been scared off, and whether or not he's ready for us to launch into him, and if he can handle this kind of abuse. What do you think, Jay? You ready?
Yeah, still here and ready to go.
All right.
So,
So
I have one very important question before we go forward. Thorfinn, is that an owl mug?
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. We don't have our glasses unpacked, and so the only box I could find was it's a historic, like 100-year-old German Stein. And
Okay.
and I was just like,
saw it
well,
for a
I guess
second
I'm gonna
there,
have a beer in this ancient Stein. But yeah, I'll show it to you guys. It's super bitchin'.
oh yeah.
It's really cool. I got it at the, long story short, I got it at this really great German restaurant that sells historical steins too. Like they have like every era, and then so I bought one, and then you get to drink out of it while you're there. But it's the only glass I had that was available.
Okay.
So,
I can now focus on the rest of the video because every time Thorfinn was picking up that cup, I'm like, I have got to ask. So, all right.
Thanks, brother.
Elias, you ready to go?
Yeah, good to go.
Yeah, so Helga, I think we were going to start with his fight with Jason, who is currently king of Anstiora.
Jason's the first one that you guys sent?
I think so.
The 8-minute video? Cool.
Yep.
Give it a second to buffer, because we found that works better if we do that. Okay, cool. I think we're actually already good to go. Woohoo, fast internet.
Yeah, I'll be looking at upgrading soon.
Fiber is the way to go, man.
For sure.
All right, so we are here.
Are you still slow motion?
Nope.
Okay.
which one's Jay?
I'm on
Jason,
the
we're
right.
on the right in
Yep.
the red.
In the red, got it.
Mhm. Did you actually catch that?
I was on the ear.
Okay. Do we want to keep going, Sean? Or you
Yeah,
want to
let's keep going. That one was like super way out at range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he just beat you because your shield was out of position. But
Mm-hmm. He overcommitted to probing range and was leaning on that front foot.
exactly right. Yeah. What did he? Where did that shot you just threw? Did he block that, or did it just not have power on
it just missed. Jay was
Yeah.
throwing it at he started it at too deep of a range, and
That's
then
what I
Jason was
thought.
able to kind of void it out a little bit.
Mhm. It also looks like it just slides. There's
Yep.
no
Yeah.
there's no
Okay.
stop to the motion.
That's something we can talk about later. But
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
That's actually like, so that now emphasized my point for like I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm now consistently seeing the same thing. So
And Jay, when was this? When was this taken?
This was end of 19, I think, maybe early 20. So I think
All right, so this
November-ish.
is after he won crown, but before he stepped up.
I believe so. I think it was Prince at the time, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, wrestling.
You
We
should
just
have
cut-
short stick the fuck out of him for that.
Just cut straight to the wrestling.
like just this roll right here. Oh.
Is shield hooking the helmet legal there?
Yeah, I was like,
Not where I am. This was in Onstore.
Yeah, not particularly. I mean, I've done weirder stuff. So
I mean, and this is where all the trainers get sassy.
hey, did
All
you
right,
do
you wanna
box? Jay, were you a boxer?
Not exceptional, but I have a boxing background and a wrestling background as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm seeing some boxing footwork. Your footwork's not is
Explain
really
some
good.
stuff. Yeah.
Also,
I'm seeing
the
it.
wrestling background's explaining something that I'm seeing as he's breaking range.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of the amp card footwork stuff too.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, there's some power. There's some power, theft of power actually from pulling out of the steps a little bit.
Mhm.
But I mean, but his movement through and stuff is it's good.
All right, have you guys seen enough to pick on stuff? Because I think this
Yeah,
one is.
I think so.
We aren't going to get an exact shot on this one, but I think that all of us have probably seen enough to give the first round of feedback.
Yep, I'm good.
Cool. I'm going to drop the share, so we're down to this.
All right, go ahead, Helga.
Okay, so a couple things. We're going to start off with compliment. I really like the energy you're bringing to the fight. And then I'm going to go right alongside saying I like the energy you're bringing to the fight. I would say I would love to not have the other person manipulate it so easy.
Yeah, sure.
Because one of the things is you're coming in high energy, and instead of maintaining your energy, you're allowing them to like steal it from you and then dictate your cadence. And it only takes about 2 motions, or basically 2 intentions, and you are then surrendering that over. And then they're using it against you, actually. So he is giving you a little stimulus, and you're blowing 3 to 4 times the amount of energy to get back to a place where you can fire from, because he's got you wound. So instead of coming in as high energy, he's actually winding you up so you can't keep your OODA loop running.
Sense.
So second thing, I'm actually really impressed with your ability to stay on the balls of your feet. And again, I'm going to give you something, and then I'm going to pick on it. However, your feet are pointed in the exact wrong direction to deliver power. So you are already starting into frame weight transfer. We see this very commonly with people that come out of foam fighting. They actually have a pretty good idea of moving their body, because you guys have to fight at such a high rate of speed. And you guys it's much more to the touch. But what it does is allows is the footwork tends to be 2 or 3 stages ahead of your actual shot. So you're already looking to exit with your feet before you ever deliver the blow. And you can see this very consistently through this, is your feet are already on the exit path by the time you're trying to deliver the shot. And this is the reason why I was like, oh, when you threw that offside, I was like, I have my thing. And so what we want to do is actually slow the thought process down a little bit. So where we want to speed Thorin up, we want to slow you down a little bit and get your feet to help deliver the power, because you're already starting to move your frame across to generate, but it means that your toes have to be pointed at the final destination of where you want that power to go. Because if your toes are pointed the other way, you will lock your hips out and steal your own power. Does that make sense?
It does. I definitely can get happy footed and recognize when I'll throw something, be like, oh, I can feel it, but it's hard to
It's
tune it
basically
out.
you're ripping your power out from underneath yourself. So your hands are there and your feet are not, and your feet are what's taking it away right now. So the third thing that I'm going to touch on just real quick, you are fighting your opponent's tools, not your opponent. We see this in the first shot you throw when your flat snap is not parallel with his shield. It is right into the middle, and then we consistently see it for the rest of the fights. You are not looking to go past his tools. You are looking to go to his tools. And so this is a developmental thing in your fight where you will start looking at your opponent and what they are giving you versus trying to beat what is in front of you. Their tools will only be in so many positions. They can only actually be in so many positions. So if you kind of give that idea, you then understand the lanes. So we want to get you developing and understanding the lanes that are generated by their motion. And you and I can geek out on this so much.
Sure.
So that's what I'm seeing. And do you have any questions on that one? Because I just threw a ton at you real quick.
No, that definitely made sense.
Okay.
I'm following with you for now.
Cool.
Alrighty, Ragnar.
Okay. Not a lot of lateral movement. It's a lot of kind of fencing a bit. It's in and out. When I was watching the video last night, I was thinking there's something odd about the way he stands and the way he moves. And finding out that you have a boxing background explains a lot, because there is a lot of boxing type movement that I see with especially with your footwork. And it seems like you I don't know if it's just the opponent you're fighting or if it's just the way you do it, but it's a jump in, blow or two, and get the hell out of there. Jump in, get out. Jump in and get out. But when you're retreating on that getting out, it's generally a straight back. It allows your opponent to chase you down. You're off balance. You're leaning back. Your opponent, once he can get the timing down on that, he's on you. Okay. The footwork is really nice. It needs to maybe flow a little bit more for what we do. Instead of in and out, hit your opponent's oblique sides, off their shoulder, a foot and a half, 2 feet, a couple steps that direction. Force them to move and shift on you. Okay. Then when you're peeling away from them, when you have to retreat, if you feel like you have to, peel away from it. Don't jump back the way you were. Right. Come in, hit the oblique, and then keep going on the oblique. More like an obtuse angle instead of coming straight back and forth.
Sure.
I note about something wrong with your leg, but with the boxing thing, that explains that. And it was just the way you were moving. It looked like sometimes you fight from your heels. Yeah, it looked like a lot of your weight was on your heels when you were fighting. So when you're moving okay, but when you're stationary, you're set, right? Instead of being in a position where you're kind of like a flywheel, to where that motion's there, now needs to engage and go. Generally, you're going or you're flat-footed, right? Kind of keep that not the illusion of motion, but that ability to kick in that motion at any time. Okay.
Sure. Question, Ragnar. Is the boxing related leg issue in following Helga's comment on the direction of my toes, or something different?
Repeat that, please.
Sorry, Helga commented on the positioning of my
position.
toes. Is that the same issue that you're commenting on with boxing related leg positioning?
A little bit, yeah. For me, it was more, it seems that boxers fight a little bit more flat-footed than what we do. That's what I was getting off some of the video that I was watching on you. It seemed like you were heel to toe a lot of times, and then when you were stationary, I didn't get I got the sense that if you were going to move, you had to start to move, right? You weren't ready to move at that moment.
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, to kind of if you're going to be stationary, don't be stationary on the flat of your feet. Be stationary up on the balls of your feet, right?
All right, did that answer that, Jay?
Yeah, that definitely clarified. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
All right, Thorfinn.
Yeah. So again, always balls of the feet. I mean, you should be able to move forward, backwards at any angle on those balls of your feet. It's going to be an enormous advantage. Again, the idea is that once you start to rock back, you're literally nailed to the ground. You can't move. You were doing a pretty good job doing the transition in and out. But I think what one of the guys recognizing that it was the foam fighting, you're like, they said you were ahead of yourself. And what's happening is you're literally, as you come into range and you recognize the blow, you start to throw it, and then your feet are moving back out, which is stealing your power. Okay. And so if you had managed to come in and transition into that stance as you fired, then come out, right? Then you're not taking the power away from your core. So you're throwing so quickly, you're retreating, so quickly out of the blow that you're sapping all the strength from it. I have a question. Did you pick the very small shield as a challenge for you? Because it's a pretty small shield for for tournament fighting.
Yeah, not specifically, mostly Kingdom Convention. We have to be in Palantir to be a Crown Legal Shield. You have to be able to span it from armpit to fingertip across
That's
its
the
widest
longest
length.
any part of it can be.
Exactly. So that is maybe an inch or two on the diagonal under Crown Legal. So I can use a larger shield, but I'd prefer to use a shield that I can use.
No, just a question, because what you really do, I mean, I used to do it when I was younger. I used to do a lot of like small shield to push myself, but it leaves you very little room for a mistake.
It's a slim margin for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Less margin. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to check in on that. Yeah. Also, the whole thing that what Helga said was that you're attacking straight into the shield. What you're doing is you don't actually have like your blow selection figured out, and so you're just throwing. And instead, you got to look, and every blow, even if it's a fake, because a lot of guys are going to think I'm going to go to the offside head, but I'll hit the shield, and then I'll go to somewhere else. Every blow, even a fake, should have proper technique. It should feel like a real threat, right? And if you're lucky, you kill a guy with it, right? Worst case scenario, you kill him, right? But so don't waste energy by throwing and attacking like the shield and things like that. I mean, there are times where you'll do something like hit someone's sword because it freezes it. That's planned, right? But if you're just starting by attacking into that, you're just wasting energy. And your stick's gonna blow up faster too. But there you go. I mean, that's something to think about. Is every blow, even a fake, should have proper technique.
That makes sense. Got that down.
Oh. Thanks, guys.
Right on.
Also, if I can, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just go ahead and add that along the same lines as Thorin. It doesn't seem like you're really all that comfortable up close. Go ahead and throw yourself up close there for a while and figure it out. Does that make sense?
It does.
You just kind of it seems like you want to be at that range and jump and stick and then get back out again, instead of letting yourself float into the range and let your opponent dictate a little bit of the fight. But you're still in control of it, because you've got your defense. You've got to trust that. So you get in on the inside, you get to moving on the obliques, get your opponent moving, watch him shift, and then pop in on it.
That makes sense.
Instead of coming from out of the extreme range and then popping in.
For sure. I was definitely a little gun shy at Jason's counter punching and trying to avoid that by forcing that range rather than getting inside.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the effect you had was to enhance that. So if you're jumping in at him, that gives him the chance to go, okay, here he comes, 1, 2, 3, pop. Right. So a little bit more controlled, and I think you'll find a little bit more success with that.
Helga?
If you understand what a person is bringing to the table, punish them for it. You just said, I wanted to avoid his counterpunching. Why avoid his tool? He is then going to work to get to his tool. So if you can actually figure out how to manipulate his tools, he wants to counterpunch. Okay, cool. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to throw that real long range shot, and I'm going to drop into the guard for the most likely counterpunch he's going to throw, because it unloads him. So instead of trying to nervously get him to unload at you by right on the edge of measure and wasting all that energy, just understand and set him up to, cool, I'm going to give you the exact thing you want, and now I'm going to punish you for it. And as soon as you get that idea down, and then some of the concepts around applying that to general fighters, what'll end up happening is you are going to naturally take away their tools, because what they're successful with, they can just work towards. And cool, like, you don't want me to counterpunch you, so you're avoiding me. I'll just wait until you give me what I want. Versus if you punish them for their strongest tools, you're going to make them start second guessing their fight and try to come up with something a little different. You're going to start building that apartment in their head. Never try to avoid somebody's strongest tool. Figure out how to beat it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, you just dropped that. I was just like, oh no, I have a soapbox.
She's known for her soapbox.
Yeah.
All right. So do we want to look at another one for Jay?
Yeah. Hang on one second.
How about we look at the finals with this year?
Mm-hmm.
Sean, did you have anything on that first set?
I'll cover some stuff in a minute here.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've got something. We'll go over it in a minute.
Glad to hear it.
It's very similar, but we'll go over it in a minute.
It's about 50 before this kicks off.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I can quit clicking forward.
Yep.
That was a real slick little thrust, by the way.
Had to give him a second to remember to die.
I think he was
something.
pretty shocked he got hit with that right out the gate.
So you get hit in the right arm there.
Mm-hmm.
Left arm, but yes.
Oh yeah. Are you predominantly right-handed?
I am. I'm kind of odd. I do miscellaneous sports left-handed. I had a right arm UCL tear in high school, so I kind of I'm naturally right-handed, but I've spent a lot of time with the left.
Learn
A
how to
lot of
make
the amp guard guys who do the Florentine end up being pretty strong on the left hand.
Do we want to go to the third fight since he was pinned in the
Yeah,
corner?
yeah. Let's go to the third fight.
So see on the video how your back toe is pointed out?
Yep,
That's what I'm talking about there.
for sure.
It means your left hand only has ending power. Your hip is locked out to roll to the right.
It also limits your lateral motion.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, it sucks that they made you restart at distance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you'd fought really hard to get that inside advantage.
Yeah.
So we're seeing
Listen-
the same mental thing is coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to avoid his strengths instead of unloading it. So you're not manipulating the fight here. You're trying to outspeed him. So this is actually where you're actually almost the dominant fighter here. It's accidental because you aren't dictating this fight. You just have hand speed on him.
It works.
Also, this is something. This is also something we see in a lot of the amp guard fighters. Is of the avoidance of being hit, like the evasion, right? Which is not. I mean, don't be there when the sword hits, right? That's a good plan. But because in the foam fighting stuff, I mean, your victory condition is just to the touch.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to do everything you can to make sure that you don't get touched at all. And that tends to tends to keep you from engaging. And that's something that Sven has figured out how to do particularly well. I see he's in the comments there too. It's something he's figured out how to do particularly well, but he gets the timing and he engages when he wants to engage. But right now you're spending a lot of your time just avoiding, just making sure you don't get hit. And some of that is going to be, you are going to have to step in to some degree. You're also going to have to, I talk about it as, when we think about evasion, most people think that just means running straight back in a line, right? So I tell people about evading forward, right? Where you can step through your opponent's attack going on a 45-degree angle. Ragnar was talking about that earlier, right? Step through on these 45s. And what you do is you're diffusing their attack and you're keeping yourself in a position where you can actually strike afterwards. So think about it as evading forward or evading through rather than evasion just being straight backwards. Because the big thing I was going to cover for what you're doing in all of this is it takes, and we saw this in Jason's fight and we see this here as well, it takes a certain amount of emotional investment for you to engage the fight, for you to pursue range. And what's happening is you put out that emotional expenditure and your opponent is taking that back for free. That's kind of what Helga was talking about earlier. And like the slightest motion towards you, you're going to run away from that. And you're doing so just in a straight line backwards. You're taking all of that effort that it takes to establish territory. If you think about it, even in large scale military conflict, it takes guns, gas, and bullets to get a certain amount of real estate, right? And if you're going to expend those resources to get there, and then you just give that away at the slightest motion that they're going to give you, you're just going to run away from it. You've wasted all that effort that it takes to get there. So when you decide that you're going to engage the range, step up into that range, and when that motion happens, rather than running away from it, bear down, strike into it, take advantage of it, as Helga was saying, abuse them for their tendencies. So that was one of the big things that I was noticing there. So, all right, Helga, you got anything else on this?
So we went over most of my points of I think the big key one is you're fast. You have very fast hands. You have fast feet. So we want to calm your feet down a little bit. We want to get rid of the weeble wobble. I mentioned it actually in the quotes because Thorin asked a question while we were going over stuff. Is both of you guys actually have a very similar thing? Is once you commit to a direction on your feet, you fall into it. And so right now you can actually see in your fights that you're kind of leading with your head. So if your head's going backwards, your feet are going to go behind it just a little bit. And so we want to get you a little bit more centered over the top of yourself. This is going to give you a better platform to fire. And I want to get you to where your feet are pointing to where you want to deliver power. You have fast enough feet that you can volta to the next thing. As you're recovering, you'll find that you throw the shot, your feet go to the point where you want to deliver power. And as you're recovering, you can then move them to the next point of power. This is going to change your fighting vastly and quickly because it's going to get your feet to stop dancing around to try to find where the power can be generated from. You're just going to produce power and you're going to move through the arcs of power to create them. And so that's what I'm going to say is right there is don't give up your speed and don't give up a bunch of the other talents that you're already showing, but we definitely need to re-improve your base because your base is taking away all of that and actually probably making you fight a little bit more nervous because if your brain is constantly trying to figure out, I have to move my feet 7 different directions to make power, it's going to make you scramble in the fight. We quiet your feet down, everything's going to accelerate.
Thanks. That'll be one of my main points of emphasis.
All right, Thorfinn.
Okay, so earlier I talked about there are times when you can attack someone's weapon, right, by throwing into it. This would be like when that guy was leg like that, this is a perfect opportunity for you to come in with one of your 2 shots because you could come in covering the majority of what he's got going on with kind of like your hanging guard that you're doing because he has to do that really tight guard. Otherwise, you're just going to cut right in. So by attacking the weapon, what happens is anytime you cause his muscles to react, your opponent their body has to react to the thing, and then they have to physically refire their muscle again the other direction. So you literally freeze them. You could do this to his shield or his sword. But the thing is, if you're only going in linear, right, your options are very small. So what you want to do is you want to fire into that, freeze them, and then go to one of the two sides. And then you've already power loaded, right? So if you attack with the left hand, the right side's gonna be power loaded. You're going to be able then to start the whirlwind of death on these people. And so I think that, remember, instead of just straight line, you can freeze their sword or their shield by just hitting it at this particular time. The idea is to just stop it. You hit it, it freezes, it's done for a moment, and it's out of the thing, then allowing you to pick your which side you're going to go to, and then your target. So if you hit their shield, very good chance you can come in with something behind them, the shield, because they can't move it anymore. Same with the sword. It also, by attacking the sword, it stops them from having offense towards you. So then it gives you that kind of, again, in chess, they call it Luft, air, right? Where you have all of the control for a minute. So you've now cleared the air for you. You can then assess and attack. But I thought your basic form looked really solid there. Just letting you know that that's the good thing. I recognize that. You're also doing an explosive step, which is really nice. Okay, so what you're doing is you're lifting the front foot and blowing off all the power through the back foot, which is really hard for your opponent to perceive, right? It's a quick motion that they don't really register, because forward directional motion like this is the hardest thing for your eyes to adjust to perceive. Side motion, super easy. So as you're doing that, you're closing a lot of ground, which is really nice. But then at the end of that, you want to go to one side or the other. But there you go.
Definitely. Thank you, Thorfinn.
Of course.
Yeah, so before we get to Ragnar, I wanted to comment on that too, that shit just went. So go back to Ragnar. I'll think of it again. So
Hey, maybe it dovetails into what I was going to do with follow
probably.
What's that?
Probably.
Yeah. Are we keeping it just to this specific video at the moment?
Yeah.
Overall.
Okay. Or in
Whatever I
general,
wanna
whatever your observation is.
Okay.
Yeah.
With this specific video, what a lot of two stickers forget is that you don't just have two weapons. At times you have two weapons, at other times you have a shield and a weapon, and other times you have two shields. Right? So for example, when you have your opponent legged and you're footed, you go totally defensive. They've got one, they generally, if it's in this case, he's got one weapon. You've got two shields. You can shut that down. Throw at their weapon, come in with the other one as a total block. Close that range, and at close range, now they have the one weapon and they have that one shield that is less useful to them, because now you can use their shield against them. Okay? So then you can, as Thorfinn said, you can do your whirlwind of death at that point. And get some lateral movement in with it too when you do it. Even if it's just your upper body, taking it back to boxing, a little bobbing and weaving when you're with somebody, just do a little duck down on one side. That's going to get someone to freeze up a shield for a second, and then you pop back up, boom, right in the head. Okay, so kind of use your upper body movement to kind of mess around with people. And you do the same thing with sword and shield, bastard sword, nagis, the works. Okay. Your movement is really good in chunks. You need to try to make it a little bit more fluid. Instead of along with your regular boxing style of kind of shifting the feet around real quick and moving, slow it down a little bit, make it a little bit more fluid. And then when you are still, when you have that and you are stationary, keep that keep that motion there. Even though you're still, doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to move. You look still, but you're ready to go. Yeah, I think that's about it for that part.
Makes
So
sense.
Jay, the question I had for you, Jay, was that back stance that you have there. That seems to be Taekwondo or fencing. Is that just from your boxing?
Yeah, no background in either of those.
Okay. Yeah, because that stance that Helga was pointing out, where your back foot is perpendicular to your front foot. That is a classic fencer's lunge stance. It's also what they refer to in Taekwondo. They call that a back stance. And a lot of the stances that we see in other martial disciplines are predicated on the idea that you are using your feet as an attacking weapon, and that your balance has to be set so that you can pick up either of those feet and strike with it. But we don't have that, right? So the stance that I teach, and I think Helga was kind of getting around to this too, is I'll point both of my toes at my target, because I feel like that gives me better lateral motion, so I can step to either side a lot easier. And it's really hard to do that when you've got that when you're set up in that back stance, because that back stance is very much set for a linear attack and defense. Go ahead.
That's definitely one of those that when I see myself fight and I notice like I'm really long in my stance and kind of off balance, but in the moment I kind of sell out my base for an extra couple inches of range, which I recognize as a habit, but I need to get that hammered out.
Right.
People are going to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I mean, you just said that right there. I mean, you are compromising your base for a very short-term advantage, right? As opposed to keeping a somewhat more narrow stance, and keeping a good base all the time, instead of trying to stretch it for an advantage in a base for a shorter period. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because ideally you set up your stance and it's either good enough or it's not, right?
Yeah.
And you have to operate within that base, because otherwise that's not who you really are as a fighter, right? So I think we had Helga, and then Thorfinn had comment.
One, you don't need the extra fucking range. You are lying to yourself. There's my one F-bomb for the show.
We're still PG-13. We're good.
Yeah. One F-bomb.
We get one?
So
Yeah, we all get one.
yeah, no, yeah. This is
Yeah, I
just
said
my
one earlier.
F-bomb. It's not the show's F-bomb. So one of the things is you're lying to yourself thinking that you need more range. This is a survival thing. This means that you're in the flight mode of your brain, not the fight mode of your brain. You are looking to exit the situation by keeping a longer stance and feeling that you are keeping your opponent away from you. So what we need to do is actually start looking at your mindset when you're coming into a fight. Second thing, are you doing pel work at all?
A bunch.
Cool.
A bunch since I had before, but I've been doubled up since we've been shut down.
Okay, so can you do a squat in the stance you take when you fight?
Can I do one?
Yeah.
Not a full squat.
Exactly.
I'd say so. Yep.
So when you're on the pel and you're moving around and everything else, like move around, try to do a squat. If you can't do a squat, your feet are in the wrong spot. Like, just check yourself. This is a different check than like looking back and doing it. So you can start getting the visual, you can start getting the physical memory of, I'm ready to duck. I'm ready to squat down. I can take a powered stance. I can do this thing. Because if you start to do that and all of a sudden your knee is like, hey, bud, I'm not in line with your hip or your ankle or anything else, maybe adjust the stance a little bit. So this is a cheap trick while on the pel, instead of just having to constantly look at video, because when we are fighting, we are reverting back to the most used neuro pathway in our brain. We're stressed. Like we're in the midst of a fight. Our brain is like, I'm going to take the shortest path to fire things. So you have to retrain those neural pathways to get your body to recognize I am in a good stance. So take yourself out of the stress situation and into a training situation to rebuild those pathways so you know where you're standing.
Okay. Yeah. I like that a lot. I've never thought about it that way before, but that makes a lot of sense.
That's why we're here.
I like to refer to it as being an active participant in your own fighting.
Yeah.
So question what you're doing all the time. Why is it working? Why is it not working? How could it work better? And so on.
Yeah, my favorite question is you just look at somebody and you're like, why?
Yeah, and Jay, last month when we had Tristan on with us, was that last month? We talked. He had an example of where your balance is. It's balance positive, balance neutral, and balance negative. When you're balance negative, that's where your weight is on your heels and you are not capable of jumping straight up in the air. So you might want to go back and look at the episode from last month, check the section that we had on that, or maybe even reach out to Tristan or in the coach's corner group and ask about that, and he can give you a description of that. But it was one of the things that fundamentally changed how I talk about where your feet should be and where your balance should be. So yeah, definitely look into that.
For sure.
Balance positive, balance negative, balance neutral.
I'll reach out for more information.
All right, so I think Thorfinn had one more, and I think Thorfinn, let's go ahead and have you give us some 3 things to work on for Jay with your comment there.
Okay, so remember, one of the things that we were talking about was how to move around on the balls of your feet. Is it like kind of a horse stance always, right? Is that really easy transition back and forth? You should feel that at any time you can just transition to the other foot. And a lot of martial arts teach this kind of horse stance idea. One of the things though that when you said you were kind of cheating for range, and there are times to do that. But what we're really talking about is honestly, when you feel completely like you're in the safe, right? Like you don't want to do this with someone who is, really, at your level or substantially better than you, because what you've done is you've taken away your movement for maybe one little moment to try and get this little bit of range. So instead, focus on having like a more fundamental like stance that you can trust to really get you that through that fight, rather than try and cheat it for a little bit of extra range at that end, because that 6 inches or maybe even 4 inches really is not going to make a difference. Okay, really, especially if you lose the fight because you're out of position. Let's see. Okay, and also remember that your attacking leg, if you're trying to get range, you can switch your stance to have whatever the arm that you're attacking with, which is what they call it, like goofy foot, right? Like surfers do. That forward leg a little bit forward, even if it's the same distance as if they were, next to each other, it allows you to have 4 to 6 inches of range. But so you can do stances that allow that, right? But you have to be ready to transition into defense and to move the whole time. So the goofy foot stance can work, and that's the goofy foot is going to be the attacking sword side is closest to your opponent. Okay, but that's a different technique and more maybe advanced technique. Other than that, I think that if you work on maintaining like neutral stance with your body movement, I think you're going to be moving right along. And stick with your pel work. That's going to help you a lot, because this is how you learn to move through those ranges and be able to attack and stuff. And also you can work on, like I said earlier, going into those oblique shots, come in and fade through, cut through your opponent like a strafing run, if you will. You can do that with your pel, and if no bruises. So
Sure.
There you go.
Thank you.
And Duke's fan mentioned in the comments that when you're looking at fixing that back stance, he's got a guy that can help you with that. I don't know if he's gonna outsource that, or if he has some thoughts on it. I don't know, but apparently he can help you, or he knows a guy.
For sure.
All right, Ragnar, you got final 3 things for Jay to work on.
I think so. Mentioned it earlier. Make your movement more fluid instead of kind of jerky and pulsy. Put a little fluidity into it. You say you work on the pel a lot right now. You can do that with the pel. You don't just stand in one place when you're doing the pel, and do the exercises and then try different shots. Approach the pel with your defense, and then hit it, and then so use your movement when you're working with the pel. You can do your obliques that way also. I make sure people know that when you're using a pel is circular. It's not just one-sided. All right. So when you do your shot, you approach a shot or two, do an oblique, another shot, and then peel off on that oblique. Never approach a shot, do it, and then come out of it behind, taking a step backwards. right? Keep that fluid. Use the entire pel all the way around. Do a wrap, do a step past, wrap, and then pull your left foot behind you on the other side so that you peel away. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get you're gaining more control of the fight that way. If you're forcing your opponent to face you, as opposed to trying to keep face to face with your opponent. That's why I really stress on people working the obliques. When you can make your opponent move, you have control at that moment, right? And you can take advantage of that. All right. Be an active participant in your own training, like Helga mentioned about being aware of where you are in the middle of a couple of flurries on the pel or something. Stop. Okay, can I squat from here? Okay, what can I do to fix this? Where's my movement? Is the wear pattern around my pel all in one spot? Oh, why am I doing that? I better change that up. Okay, so always be, that goes for both of you, is always be questioning what you're doing. Don't question as in, oh gosh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. Question as in, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And when we can start fighting regular again, then, especially bring your opponents into it as well. Do a couple of fights, step back and say, what'd you see? Did you see anything specific on me that looked kind of weird? And then chat that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you're disengaging, keep your balance. I think it was mentioned earlier by Helga and Thorfinn also, both. I'm gonna pile in on that because it's so important, especially when you're retreating. If your opponent can chase you down when you're off balance, you don't want that to happen. You've lost total control of the fight at that point. So when any retreating you're doing is done with balance and with control. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Both you guys are really good fighters, by the way. So I just want to throw that out there. I really like.
I agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
Both you guys. Really.
All right,
good.
Helga.
All right. So we're gonna go after a physical thing. I'm just gonna harp on everybody that agrees. Like we all agree on this. Like you need to get balanced. You don't actually have balance in your fight yet. I feel this is coming out of your feet in your stance. First thing to fix, main thing to fix on this one. We have beaten this horse not to death yet, but it sure as fuck is annoyed. Oh, there was a second one.
Oh, you stole mine.
Oh, you didn't use it fast enough. So the thing that I'm actually going to go after here, and this is going to be point 2 and 3, is you are quick enough to start gaining confidence in the fight. And so this is a mental thing of where Thorin has no problem getting hit. You can see by his fight where he is like, I will wade in like a tank. I have zero issues. We go from there. You are doing the opposite. You are trying to avoid being hit. You actually get hit training. And so one of the first things that you're going to need to wrestle with mentally is getting into a training mindset, also understanding that you're going to be hit. And that's going to be key to you developing the next phase, because if you're constantly trying to survive a fight, you are going to continue to cheat your own power, your footwork, and your headspace. This is key. So we have the physical thing of get your feet under you and get that corrected. And then we need to get your head with you and get you out of the flight brain and into the fight brain. So you can start seeing it. The third one is stop looking at your opponent's tools and start looking at the lanes they're giving you. This will go 2 directions. Understand what they're bringing to the field. So you mentioned I was trying to avoid that, I was trying to avoid this, I was trying to avoid that, I was trying to avoid that. I want you to actually flip that mindset on its head for the next however long, and I want you to go see if you can get it out of your opponent. Awesome. That opponent likes to throw a real fast flat snap. Great. I'm going to see what stimulus takes him to unload. The next phase of your fight is going to be controlling the fight. And when you control the fight is when you take your opponent's best tools away from them and you go, thank you. I will now punish you for these. You got quick enough hands to do it. You correct the other 2 things. This is the next phase of the game. It's going to get you out of the first intention of the fight, and it's going to get you controlling all intentions in the fight. And just from there, you'll go. Thorin, that goes same for you. By the way, this is actually a point that we can hit with you too, is you're starting to get there. We just need to get you out of forward. Forward does not equal survival. So There's
Yeah.
my 3.
And to kind of pile on what Helga was saying there, if you control where the fight happens, you pretty much control the fight. And Jay, right now you're trying to control the fight everywhere, and instead of picking a place to control that fight, or dictating where that fight is going to happen, if that makes sense. Helga used to have this problem early on in her Squire days of the "I claim this land for Spain.
This is mine.
This is my space, and I will fight right here in my space." And
Okay,
Yeah.
to dogpile onto Sean about that, I was breaking racehorses for a living and was strong enough that I could pull 2-year-old colts over. So like no dude scared me. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you've like some 400-pound SCA.
Yep. So she was like going to march right on up and plant herself and just stay right there. So we're not quite.
Like this.
So we're not quite looking for you to control a space. We're looking for you to control a range. Find a range wherein you can strike at anything as those targets present itself, and control that range. If you step into range and your opponent decides to step up into that next, and they want to, if you want to be in a B range and they decide they want to step into A range, you manipulate that so that you maintain the range that you want. Does it make sense?
Definitely. That plays into not yielding not getting to a range I want and then yielding it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and honestly, the solution for this is very similar to what I suggested for Thorin. Fight in a box, right? You can set, again, a parking space is basically like 15 feet wide and 30 feet long, right? That is more than enough room for two fighters to be able to disengage completely from one another if the fight calls for that. But it's also a small enough space that if you cross over the line out of the parking spot, you're dead. Like you failed, right? And being able to fight within that space and being able to turn the fight and redirect the fight and control that helps you figure out how to control the linear and the lateral lines on that. And then, yeah, if you can point your toes at your target, that is definitely going to help you with the lateral motion. But and really kind of for both of you, there is the intent, there is your footwork needs to be deliberate, it needs to be purposeful, it needs to be intentioned, if that makes sense. And right now, for both of you, your footwork is sort of a secondary concern. You are deciding what shot you are going to throw, and then you are trying to create footwork that supports that decision. Does that make sense? Rather than using your footwork to establish position and then allowing the shot to present itself from there. Does that make sense? Helga, you had something else?
Yeah, I've got something about the training in a box thing, which is the reason why, Thorin, we didn't choose your video the first time. And I always do this to poor Sean because this is my little hill I will die on. When you are in the box, you are engaged in the fight. Do not walk into the box and start the fight. As you are passing into the box, that is where you're passing into range. Do not train. Do not walk into the box, then go on guard. You want to know what that's going to get you? Flat snapped a lot. This is the one downside and the one like little star. Always remember to do this while using this training technique. Inside the box, it is lay on the entire time. That way you don't train lazy at the edge of measure.
Yep. She always makes that point, and she's right. All right. So we're gonna wrap up here. Definitely appreciate everybody coming on. So first off, Jay and Thorin, ask one more time: is there anything that we've said that doesn't make sense to you, or that is just like the airplane joke that just went right over your head?
Yeah, any questions you have?
All right, Thorin, go ahead.
So just to clarify the footwork and the foot issues that I'm having is instead of being on the balls of my feet, light on my feet, moving, I'm overcommitting to the initial shot. So I'm doing big steps in planting and throwing as opposed to moving with purpose as I'm throwing.
Correct.
Yes. But what you're doing is again, you are deciding what the blow is going to be before you establish range.
Gotcha.
Does
Yeah,
that make
or
sense?
a target even.
Or yeah, you can't know what targets are available to you until you put yourself in a position to have access to those targets, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can get an idea about something you want to throw, but as soon as you establish range after that, you need to do a sanity check, right? If I want to throw a flat snap, well, I think I can hit that guy with a flat snap. I'm going to take a step into range, and if that shot is still there, I can execute it. But if it's not
So-
there, I need to change that up. So what you're doing is you are deciding what the blow is going to be, and then you're trying to create footwork to support that shot.
Right. Yeah, you're fabricating a blow. You're fabricating a target. Instead of actually having a target, you're just deciding that this is where I'm going with this attack. But like we talked about earlier, if you become comfortable in that kind of transition between zones, as the targets present themselves, you can then attack the actual target versus just trying to hammer one in.
So I'm pre-programming my fight computer as opposed
exactly
to letting the fight evolve organically.
Exactly right.
Yep.
It's jazz, baby. Fighting is
Gotcha.
jazz.
You're acting fighting instead of reacting fighting.
Right.
You're deciding on an action and then going forward with that action instead of being open to opportunities where reaction can occur.
Gotcha.
Right. And it does, it takes a lot of faith to be able to step in and without knowing what your target is going to be, right? And this is one of the big things that we run into a lot, is that with people hesitant to establish range, right? When you step into range, you are intimately aware of the dangers of being in somebody else's range, right? You know that as soon as you step in, you're going to get hit, but you don't know where. You don't know what targets they're seeing, but you just have this overwhelming sense of dread, if you will. And when I step into range, he is going to have targets and he's going to hit something, right? But what we are less aware of and less certain of is the opportunities that also exist, right? If you are in range of the enemy is in range of you, right? So when you step into that range, you don't know what targets are going to be available to you. You just have to know that targets will be available to you. And if you're open to them being available anywhere, then you're going to be able to strike, right? If you're doing your Pell work, you're going to be able to throw any shot, right? From your opening stance. Whatever shows up, you're going to be able to strike at that. So when you step into range, just know something's going to open up because it has to. And when it does, I'll strike at whatever opens up. Because if all you can see is flat snap, you're going to be missing out on a whole lot of other things that are easier to get to, but you can't see. Does that make sense? So sometimes when I make a decision in the fight, a lot of times the only decision that I have made is that I'm going to engage the fight. Okay, here we go. I'm starting the fight. That's it. Everything else is a mystery after that. Helga?
Put it in a sentence. Don't pre-program your fight. Be prepared to have a fight.
Yeah. The ultimate goal is to be just present in the moment and have no plan. But this is a phase we all work for, guys. We all work towards this idea. It's super hard to do. And when you build your foundation, like we talk about, like I'm going to hammer on this all the time, work on those fundamental skills, because when you see these like fighters that are like really great fighters that are like doing something that doesn't seem orthodox, it's because that they've learned the fundamental skills so much that they can then fudge it and push and still be safe and have good form, right? So the only way you get to that point is to do all the hard work at the beginning. Build your fundamental skills, build your footwork, build your blow selection, build your understanding of timing. All of these things allow you then to, at the end, change it to become more you. You can then, once you learn all these things, you can then adapt it to be, a different form at that moment. But you have to have the real foundation. And that's it. All I got to say. I want to pitch something though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey guys, remember we got the SCA Coaches Corner library going right now. So go on there. There's tons and tons and tons of videos, tons of book references. I mean, geez, we have hundreds of videos now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like you can literally go, and it's searchable. You can go in and type in Duke Eichbrander, and all his videos come out, right? And there's more and more we're downloading all the time. So all of the fighters out there, go there, and there's stuff to learn from somebody. All right. So take advantage of that resource. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
You.
And all right, so Ragnar, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Any final thoughts from you? Definitely glad to have you with us tonight.
No, thanks a lot for having me on. I like this idea. I like this idea a lot. And people that are willing to take the critiques, I have a lot of respect for. Those are the folks I like to train. If your mind is open, I'll fill it with something. So, and you know, we'll make you better fighters to do it. Yeah, both of you guys, really great job on everything I watched on you guys, both you guys yesterday. There's a lot to work with there. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do in the future. It's great seeing Helga. I love listening to you talk. It's awesome. Thorfinn, you and I need to have a discussion about your move. And Sean, we need to get together sometime.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I'm really glad to have
my
you
brother
on.
sometime in the not too distant future, I think, and drive through Utah to get there. So
Yeah, definitely come on out. We'd love to have
Yeah.
you. So as always, our thanks to Helga and Thorfinn for joining us as well. And most especially Thorin and Jay, we really appreciate you guys coming on and being willing to sit here while we pick apart and tell you what terrible fighters you are.
The only way to improve.
I mean, at some point, what we need to do is the reverse, where we have all the people that we picked apart come and
There
pick
you go.
apart our videos, Sean.
Yeah, we may have to do that.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
We might have to do that. All right. So as always, thanks to everybody for the comments in the Facebook feed. We really appreciate the activity on there. Check us out on the SCA Coaches Corner. If you haven't signed up to be part of that group, please do. We are creating community over there. We appreciate input from everybody. We appreciate all the questions and thoughts that come across there as well. So please go ahead and sign up there over the SCA Coaches Corner. And we will we'll be doing this again soon. We'll be putting out a call for video. So if you've been sitting around going, when's my turn? Your turn is coming up. So be looking for that on the Coaches Corner page, and we'll get some more video submission out, and we'll keep doing this as long as you guys want to keep doing it. It's been fun. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great night.
Keep
Have a good
rocking
night.
on your hearts.